Who is the greatest NFL running quarterback of all time? Well, I give you my ultimate 11 today. Is it this guy? Well, with the Carolina Panthers, but you know what I'm talking about. It's time for the Football Takeover Show. Let's go. Welcome in, everybody, to a Friday edition of the Football Takeover Show. I'm John Harris, owner and founder of footballtakeover.com and at JH Football Takeover on YouTube. So if you're watching this, you have more than likely gotten to my page. So subscribe, like, all that kind of stuff you do with YouTube. I'm still kind of learning the lingo. I'm sure there's a quick way of saying share, like, comment, subscribe. There it is. Share, like, comment, subscribe. Cutback, counter, reverse, bootleg. Remember when I coached outside linebackers, that was the four I had to worry about. Cutback, counter, reverse, bootleg. And so subscribe, link, share, comment. I don't know if I did it in the right order, but you get the point. There you go. So welcome in. I appreciate you guys being here. Got ultimate 11 of the all-time greatest NFL rushing quarterbacks. And this was a little bit harder than I thought. I'm sure I left somebody out of this. There's one quarterback I know I left out for sure that he might not have the numbers to back it up, but I do think Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as one of the better, maybe not rushing quarterbacks. It's more about surviving at quarterback, more or less, for Patrick Mahomes. But he has survived and made a lot of big plays with his legs. But he doesn't make the ultimate 11. Who does? Well, let's stick around to find out. All I know is Cam Newton's in it. It's just a matter of where. And I'll tell you a great story about Cam from the time that I saw him in 2015. But we kick off every show with the cover 3. So let's roll, my people. At number 3, we're talking contracts. Now, I know contracts are not sexy at all, but we've got already some teams that are in camp that have reported to camp. And you're going to have some over the weekend. I know in Houston, they report on Monday and Tuesday, start practice on Wednesday. So you're going to start to hear about some players holding out. Who are those players holding out? Chris Jones with the Chiefs. There's been some rumors about potentially getting a deal done with Chris Jones. Dominant defensive performer, inside, outside for the Kansas City Chiefs. Has been that way. I know against the Texans, he was sick that week. He didn't register a stat, but that was the only game that he did that. Every other game, he was incredibly impactful and in the Super Bowl as well. So Chris Jones, watch him. What about Saquon Barkley? What about these running backs? They're going to be holding out. I'm going to have a feeling Barkley may not be there. The podcast he was on a few days ago, he was talking about that, saying, hey, this is my leverage, which is bleep you to the Giants. But he then went on to say that's kind of not like him. So we'll keep an eye on Saquon Barkley. Josh Jacobs, I got a feeling Josh Jacobs will be a holdout. Tony Pollard's been rehabbing an injury, so that might be a convenient holdout. That might be a hold-in. Just keep rehabbing until it's time to go. So we'll keep an eye on a contract situation in the NFL. All right, let's get to number 2. And we're going to go back to Evanston, Chicago. Man, this situation with Northwestern has gotten even dicier. This was it last Friday? I think it was last Friday. Maybe the Friday before. It was the Friday before that it broke. Because I was on with Seth Payne, and we just got the news probably 45 minutes or so before the end of the show. So, Pat Fitzgerald, 2-week suspension. We're like, okay, well, 2-week suspension after a pretty thorough investigation means probably not much there. You assume, and then all of a sudden you start seeing stories pour out. Brian Hamilton of The Athletic has got a great one talking about the things that went on at Camp Kenosha and things that just escalated year after year after year, starting all the way back to Gary Barnett in the mid-'90s. This situation at Northwestern is just rough. And keep in mind, Big Ten Media Days are coming up very, very soon. And unfortunately, those players are going to be subjected to so much talk about this. They won't get a question about the season or anything. This is going to be a really rough weekend. So hopefully the media understands that. It's not these guys that were in charge of all this. This was systemic throughout the Northwestern athletic program because it wasn't just football. It was baseball. And this, I don't say it tugs at my heartstrings, but I guess it does. And I've never been in a hazing situation. Never. But I know that at various points in my career, there were times I felt pretty uncomfortable with some things that went on. Never anything like Northwestern, but just, being from Texas, talking funny, whatever. I mean, not being as strong as somebody in a weight room. I mean, just all those kind of things that go with being on a team in high school and college. They can leave a stain, and Northwestern kept leaving stains all over the place, and that was a terrible thing. Now, speaking of stains being gone, at number 1, the Washington Commanders' sale is final. Josh Harris and his group, including Magic Johnson, now have the Commanders in their hands. Looked a little dicey there for a little while. There was kind of some ups and downs about, I don't know if it's going to get done legally. It's done. The owners unanimously voted. It's done. Josh Harris, the owner of the Washington Commanders. What also happened at the same time was Mary Jo White's report on the workplace with the Washington Commanders was released. And the NFL fined Dan Snyder $60 million. $60 million. What does that tell you about what is potentially in that report? And here's the thing. Seen situations in the NFL where one person can completely alter an NFL franchise. One person, both good and bad. Dan Snyder was not the only one. He was not the only one. This was a Commanders, Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins. There were things happening in scouting and personnel. There was a guy that was booted a few years ago, Dan Snyder. This was systemic within the Washington organization. And hopefully Josh Harris gets in that organization, starts cleaning house and getting it the way that it needs to be. Now, I think Jason Wright, ironically, who played at Northwestern, tying number 2 and 1 together. Hopefully Jason Wright is a great spot, great place to start as president. I think he's done a pretty decent job. I think they, as Magic Johnson alluded to, they just need to scrub the brand, scrub everything. Now, what they don't need to scrub is the defensive line, because the defensive line is studly, and Chase Young has been posting videos. He looks like he could be on the way back. But that Washington organization, the fans of the Washington Redskins, Washington football team, Washington Commanders, those fans deserve better. And hopefully they're going to get it with Josh Harris, the owner of the Philadelphia 76ers, now owner of the Washington Commanders, at least Commanders for now. That's your cover 3. Now it's time for that discussion we talked about. The Ultimate 11 NFL rushing quarterbacks of all time, or at least since I've been alive. How about that? All right, it's time for our Friday Ultimate 11. And this week I picked one based on, I don't want to say some controversy, but something that Nick Bosa actually said about Justin Fields. He said he's the greatest running quarterback of all time. I thought, boy, that's kind of a mouthful, especially the fact that Justin Fields has only been in the league for 2 years. Now, he's been really good for those 2 years, but it's only been 2 years. So I got me thinking for Ultimate 11, hey, how about a good topic? How about the Ultimate 11 NFL's best rushing quarterbacks? Now, again, IMO, you know what that means, right? In my opinion. So immediately when I say number 11, you're going to be, but just go with me, listen to the whole thing. And if you have comments, comment below, because that's kind of the way it goes. So let's get into our Ultimate 11. The Ultimate 11, NFL's best rushing quarterbacks. And we start at number 11 with Jalen Hurts, Eagles quarterback. Now, if we had one of those like Ultimate 11s where you'd have green arrows going up and red arrows maybe coming down because, over time, maybe you're not thinking about this guy as much. There'd be a couple guys with some red arrows, and we'll get to them a little bit. Jalen Hurts would have a green arrow, not because he's with the Eagles, but just because he's only been in the league for a few years. But last year, he was absolutely incredible as a rushing quarterback. Now, he might be one of the best, if not the best, quarterback sneakers we've ever seen. He squats 600 pounds, so it makes sense that in short yardage situations, Jalen is exceptional. Now, Jalen, I think Jalen scares defenses when he runs the ball because he's very smart about when he chooses to do it. But I don't know if you look at Jalen and go, well, he's the fastest. He's the most elusive. He's just really smart when he runs the football, and then he's really tough to tackle. So we're going to put him at 11, but it's a green arrow going up. Now, if I had one of the red arrows going down, it would probably be for this guy, number 10, but it's hard to dispute what Russell Wilson has done throughout his career as a rushing quarterback. Now, more so as a scrambler and making plays off scrambles, but in 2014, now this is a long time ago, but in 2014, he had one of the greatest seasons as a rushing quarterback when he ran for 849 yards in leading the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. Now, he has not been that guy lately. But earlier in his career, and there will be a few of these guys on my Ultimate 11, earlier in a career, you're like, whoa, this guy was a problem. Russell Wilson was a problem in 2014 and probably up through 2018-ish. So, yeah, he's got to make the list number 10. Number 9, kind of a polarizing guy, but not as a rusher, Donovan McNabb. You talk about escapability, size. Obviously, he ran that freeze option at Syracuse in college. But with the Eagles, boy, Andy Reid had some, not really his quarterback runs, but there were some things designed for Donovan to use his movement skills. I think Donovan gets forgotten about on a lot of different levels. So Donovan McNabb comes in at number 9, 5.6 yards a carry, almost 3,500 career yards rushing. So he comes in at number 9. Number 8, the number I'm about to give you shocked me, so I'm going to shock you with it. But number 8 is Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has 38 rushing touchdowns. Now, he's been playing since 2018, so he's got a body of work. He's 38 rushing touchdowns. That's third all-time since the AFL-NFL merger. He'd be 4th all-time. But Jack Kemp, who I know more as a congressman, who played in the NFL, I've seen all his highlights, and he was a very good scrambler. But Jack Kemp would be number 3. I think he had 40. Josh Allen is 38. 38. Now, here's the road with Josh Allen. I've said throughout the offseason he's got to run less. But I think in running less, he might be more effective. But Josh Allen comes in 3rd all-time with 38 rushing touchdowns. He comes in at 8. Number 7, and again, I'm talking about kind of phases of a guy's career. Early in his career, I don't know that any quarterback at that time was more dangerous than Steve Young of the Bucs and the 49ers. He was a tremendous runner of the football. In fact, Steve Young had 43 career rushing touchdowns. That's 2nd all time. And some of the ones you see in NFL films are famous ones. Getting out of a scramble, I think it was against the Vikings. He had one against the Rams. He was an incredible runner on the move. Once he took over as a starter, he became a guy on bootlegs. Anything on the move, he was a problem. Now, it also shortened his career because he took a lot of hits and led to concussions late in his career. But early in his career, it was hard to get a handle on Steve Young. He was probably a 4-4, 4-5 guy, run the football. Steve Young comes in number 7. Number 6, one of my favorites of all time, Randall Cunningham, especially with the Eagles. Now, with the Vikes, he showed the long arm, which he also had. Randall Cunningham might be the most exciting guy that Philly's ever had. Philly's had a few of them. My gosh, Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, Jalen Hurts. Whew. Man, the Eagles have seen some running quarterbacks, but Randall could do it all on the run. And you've seen him run to set up some throws, some escapes that he had. He was incredible. I don't know that, he made some great runs, but he chose to pass probably a little bit more than he ran. But boy, when he had the ball, he had that long stride, long, wiry. Randall Cunningham comes up at number 6. Opposite of Randall Cunningham in some sense, he was more a fullback. He was more Mike Allstott when he carried the football. That's Steve McNair at number 5. He was a stud. He was really tough to face. What defensive players have told me that have played against Steve McNair is he was so hard to bring down in the pocket. And you saw that in the Super Bowl when he makes the scramble late in the game where he finds some yards late in the game and just keeping plays alive. McNair was like that. I think McNair would have absolutely thrived in this RPO quarterback run game that we have now. I think McNair might have been even higher. He was incredible. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry, which is a tremendous number for Steve McNair. He also had 37 touchdowns. It puts him tied for 4th, or actually 4th, because Tobin Rote was the other guy. He actually has more than the number 1 guy on this list, but you'll see why number 1 is number 1. But number 5, Steve McNair. Number 4, all right, we are going to go with Justin Fields here at number 4. I don't think he's the best all time. But Justin's been able to run ever since Harrison High School in Georgia, Ohio State. He has been a factor running the football. Now, Justin Fields will stop being at number 4 if he doesn't throw the ball better this year. Now, he said he is also going to throw the ball better, so good on him. But he's one of 4 guys all time to rush for over 1,000 yards in a season. In fact, he was 2nd all time last year with that season. So I can see why Nick Bosa said it. And when you run for over 1,000 yards in just your 2nd year, yeah, you deserve to be on this list. Now, is he a little high? Maybe. Because some of these guys, other than Jalen, Jalen's going into his 4th year. Justin's going into his 3rd. Some of these guys have lengthier careers or retired or done with the game. Justin's not. So you can climb up this list. But these top 3 to me are inarguable. Now, What's arguable is how you want to put them in order. Here's how I put them in order. I put number 3, Cam Newton. He is by far, it's not even close. He has as many rushing touchdowns as Josh Allen and Steve McNair combined. 75. He was an incredible runner of the football, and I went back and forth. Here's the only reason that I did not put Cam higher on the list, because the 2 guys higher than him, I think, gave defensive coordinators more issues because of their speed. And I think one of them, and we'll get to him in a second because he had to go away to jail for a few years, he didn't put up the numbers. But I'll tell you a story about Cam. We went to go play Carolina in 2015. I'm out on the field. I'm doing my pregame stuff. And we have 3 defensive backs that are kind of walking the field together. And Cam comes running out of the locker room from the far right corner, northwest corner of the stadium. He comes out. He's got a Superman, like Under Armour, like spandex top. He's all spatted up. He's got a skull cap on. He's got big headphones on. He comes running on the field. And I think it was the first time I'd ever seen Cam in person. And he comes running on the field. And you know that meme where there's a guy holding a hand with the girl, and then there's another girl going the other direction, and he's turning around looking at the other girl? All 3 of these Texans, as Cam went running by, they all turned and looked at him. And I could see the look on her face like, we got to face him? And I died laughing. And then he ran by me. I'm like, oh my God, he's massive. For a guy that size to run the ball as well as he did, Cam Newton was freaking special. So he comes in number 3 with 75 rushing touchdowns in his career. Number 2, Lamar Jackson. He is still piling up numbers, 4.3 speed. The entire offense was based around what Lamar has been able to do in the run game. Now we'll see what Todd Monken does with him, but Lamar Jackson, absolutely incredible. He's only been a starting quarterback since 2018. But what he does to defenders out in space, I would think that defenders that played Cam and Lamar feared Lamar more because of the speed. With Cam, they just like, if I hit and hang on, I got a chance. You may not even have a chance to hit and hang on with Lamar Jackson. So Lamar comes to number 2. And at number 1, yep, you guessed it, Michael Vick. I have never seen anybody change the game with his legs and speed more than Michael Vick. Pure and simple. He could throw it through a brick wall, but you didn't know which brick wall he was going to hit. But when he tucked the football and ran, when he saw man coverage and everybody's back was turned, like against the Vikings, the famous run there, Michael Vick was the scariest quarterback with the ball in his hands. I put him at number 1. He averaged 7 yards per carry, which is absolutely incredible. Lamar Jackson, number 1. There we go. Jalen Hurts, 11. Russell Wilson, 10. Donovan McNabb, 9. Josh Allen, 8. Steve Young, 7. Randall Cunningham, 6. Steve McNair, 5. Justin Fields comes in at 4. Cam Newton at 3. Lamar Jackson, 2. And Michael Vick comes in at number 1. That's your ultimate 11 for today. This is going to be one of my most fun segments, Football 101. Now, I will readily admit that there's going to be some times when you watch this and you go, man, that's easy. I know that. Then there's going to be some kind of medium level, like, oh, yeah, I kind of knew some of that. But and then there may be a little bit more advanced stuff where you're going, oh, I like that. Now, there's super advanced stuff that I'll leave to some of the guys that are still coaching out there, some of the guys you can follow on Twitter. Guys I follow, I like. Coach Dan Casey, who's over at Episcopal High School here in Bel Air in Houston. My man, Coach Vass, I wrote to him. I listened to a couple of podcasts that Coach Vass did, and I was blown away. I DM'd him out of the blue and just said, man, you're incredible. Really, really good at what you do, and I hope you continue to do it. And he does, and he's continued to do it, created a business for himself. And so some of the super advanced stuff I'll leave for those guys. But I figured for my first Football 101, why not do one of the easiest things? But it's one thing that I hear from fans a lot. I just kind of seeing quizzical looks like, hey, what does it mean when I hear 11 personnel or I hear 12 personnel? So today's Football 101, we're going personnel groupings and what that actually means. So we're going to take a look at a picture right here. And I got everything labeled. And what do you see there? You see a tight end, and you see a wide receiver, and you see a running back in the backfield. So here's how personnel groupings work, and it's pretty simple, actually. However, we'll talk about some of the things that make it difficult in just a second, but 11 personnel. That's 11 personnel. Why? Because there's one running back and there's one tight end. That's how you clarify. Now, there are 5 eligible receivers, correct? That's how you come up with it. So if you're talking 12 personnel, that means one running back, 2 tight ends. So how many receivers are left? Well, you got 2, right? Everything adds up to 5. Well, why don't you do it by receivers? Look, defensive coaches came up with this a long time ago, and having been a defensive coach, you know I'm not very smart. So you just try and come up with something that your team can discuss out on the field. So let's take a look at another one here. And what do you see? Well, I see 2 backs in the backfield, and I see 3 wide receivers, but I don't see any tight ends. Okay, well, just do the math. That's 2 running backs and 0 tight ends. That's 20 personnel. So simple, 20 personnel. Now, in 20 personnel, here's where the little bit more advanced part comes in. Do you have 2 tailbacks back there? Do you have Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard in the backfield together? You know, because that's going to be a different look than if you have a fullback with Tony Pollard together. Those two are they're different. You can get in the I formation in 20 personnel with 3 wides and run all your inside run game, your ISOs and things like that with a fullback. Or you can get in shotgun with 2 wide receivers. It's still 20 personnel, right? But you can do totally different stuff because you have 2 tailbacks back there. One might be more of a pass catching threat, etc. So you might call one 20 personnel, basic, and then 20 personnel like Mustang or Pony, something fast, because you got 2 tailbacks back there. So you can designate within your personnel groups. But when you hear a coach now say, hey, we're a 12 personnel team, what's he telling you? He's telling you we go with 1 running back and 2 tight ends a lot. Oh, that team is different from other teams. There are a lot of 21, a lot of 22 personnel. What does that mean? There are 2 backs, 1 tight end, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. So you can in your mind go, okay, if I see 2 backs and a tight end, oh, maybe that's more of a running set. Oh, they're in 22 personnel. That's a definite running set. 2 backs, 2 tight ends. If you get a team that's in 23 personnel, what's about to happen? Well, it's probably going to be Eagles quarterback sneak, as we talked about earlier in the show with Jalen Hurts. So the personnel groupings get broken down each week. That's what coaches stay there till midnight each week. They try and figure out, all right, how are we going to treat this personnel group? Travis Kelce, throughout the league, 31 different teams will have a different personnel grouping. It might be, okay, we're going to just call that straight up 11 personnel. Or they might call it 10 personnel on 3rd down because they'll treat Kelce like a receiver. So tight ends kind of complicate things a little bit. Fullbacks kind of do it. Sometimes receivers do. Sometimes there might be a bigger receiver. Hey, we're going to treat him like a tight end. And so, okay, if we're treating him like a tight end. So it all comes down to how a team determines the groupings that are out on the field and how they look at that personnel. You might see running back in the program, but the defense sees fullback or, we're going to treat him like a receiver. Or, hey, it's 3rd down, so we're definitely going to treat him like a receiver. So personnel groupings are a little different based on teams, but the basic genesis of it is first number, running backs, second number, tight ends, and then you can do the math. Hey, it's 22 personnel. Well, that's 4. That means one other receiver. That means one other guy that's eligible has got to be a receiver. And there you go. Personnel groupings made easy right here on Football 101. All right, that's going to do it for my Friday show. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you're checking out everything, footballtakeover.com. Reminder, August 1st. That's the day when, man, I'm unleashing on August 1st. Unleashing Harris 100, top prospects, draft prospects in the SEC, top draft picks, easy for me to say, in the Big 12. All of that right there on August 1st, and all the stuff you're going to get throughout the season. So make sure you check that out. And of course, watch all those videos that are there on my YouTube channel. Check them all out. Some are short, so put the film on, bros. Some the shows that we did this week, our daily show. So make sure you check that out. We'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate everybody that's been with me, between Willie, Brett, Scott, Don, all you guys that have been very supportive of me. I appreciate you guys. Everybody out there, have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Good night.